or speak to Dylan, our administrator at the back that was serving drinks. For the members that's here, good for you. I want to remind you, it's not what the club can do for you, it's what you can do for the club. Mountaineering is not just about hiking and climbing. There's conservation, there's land and access, there's search and rescue. There's many avenues where members can be involved, and the club will be vibrant if we have active members. Please be involved. If you want to be involved, and I'm preaching to the wrong people here, because these are the ones that's here, but speak to me or speak to Dylan anytime that you want to. But without any further ado, Nick is going to introduce our guest speaker. Over to you, Nick.
Hi guys, please bear with me, I'm not used to this kind of thing. Hector, I started, well, hold on. When Benny asked me to do this talk, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to embarrass my dear friend Hector. So it won't be that bad, don't worry about it. I started climbing with Hector in 2010. We went to Schlab's Kloof, Schlabbertini Kloof. He climbed with a friend, Ian, and I climbed with another friend, Andrew Porter. Hector and Ian ran up a bullet. They set up a nice stance on a ledge, and then they watched me for about half an hour, sniggering like two baboons across the kloof at me, giving some terrible advice. I went up. It was definitely above my pay grade. I placed some gear, and I heard Hector say, "Nick, how's that piece?" And I said, "It's okay." He said, "You should really place another one." I didn't. And I fell, and I ripped out that piece, and Hector and Ian shut up, which was wonderful. And that started the strong relationship that we have to this day. Sorry, I've just lost my place. I asked Hector for a list of his accolades, and he hates a little bit of hero worship. So when you see him, just give him a good pat on the back and tell him how great he is. He does like it. Let me read directly from the WhatsApp. It just moves a little bit easier. Hector, going to need a brag list of your climbing career, please. Summited Chirrut Chaltane, Fitzroy, and Cerro Ponciat in Patagonia in 2013. Nose in a Day in 2011, Free Ride on El Cap, not free, in 2016, Salaith on El Cap, not free, in 2018, North Face of Grand Geras in Mont Blanc, 2014, New Routes in Zanskar region on the Indian Himalaya in 2010, nothing significant from a climbing perspective, but true adventure, which I always feel is understatement, typical of Hector. Local stuff to follow. Opened lots of new routes in the Kloofs and Blyde and sporadically in Boven and other places, and then Blouberg. Been going there for a quarter of a century. Have climbed 25 different routes on the North Wall, opened 2 new routes, and authored the guidebook. Forgot free ascent of regular northwest route in Half Dome back in 2011. And I said, it's a very nice list. I would like to add the traverse of the Northern Berg skyline, which I thought was a magnificent route and hasn't got the attention it deserves. It has merit. I'm assuming there will be some grade chasers at the talk. Have you got some red point and on-site grades for me? Don't roll your eyes. Hector says, forgot about that Berg thing. Really? It's an epic thing. You should ask him about it later. Full traverse of the summits of the Eastern Buttress and the amphitheater, including Devil's Tooth, over 2 days. Hardest, the grades now. The hardest red point, 28 on trad and bolts. Nice. Hardest on-side, 26 on trad, probably 25 on sport, but not sure. And then I said, I recall you on-sighting Twist and Shout, which is 27. Forgot about the Berg thing. Twist and Shout is soft at 27, probably more like 25. Hector, come on. Okay. Maybe if you have arms like a gibbon. All right. Anyway, without further ado, Hector, father, lover, legend. Over to you, buddy.
Sure. And I thought that stuff ended at your 21st. Thanks, Nick. I'll return the favor one day. Benny, how do I make this thing work? Voila. Hello, everyone. In case you missed it, I'm Hector. Thank you, Nick. I'm very excited to talk about my favorite place tonight, so thanks all for coming. Like Nick mentioned, I've been going to Blouberg for 25 odd years. There's a few remarkable things in this picture. It's probably from about 2001, 2002. It's obvious that I haven't aged a day. Some of the gear is pretty impressive as well. Big chunky knotted slings, some old solid stem friends. I love the pants. Those are homemade knee patches. The bandolier I'm wearing is homemade, and I've also got one of those indestructible Ekron Rock helmets. I know some of you still use one. But Blouberg's a place I'm really passionate about, and I'm very excited to talk with you all about it tonight. So maybe just an intro on what Blouberg is and where it is. It's a big standalone mountain range at the western end of the Soutpansberg. Let me just let this one play. It's about 5 hours north of Joburg. So you drive up the N1 to Polokwane, and then you take a tar road, and then you take a progressively worse dirt road, and you get to a little village where you park your car. And from there, it's a steep walk up a big hill. It can take 2 hours. It can take 2 days. It depends how lost you get on the walk in. But it's a really beautiful walk. A lot of people do it at night, just the way logistics work, but it's well worth doing it in the day. You walk through this big yellowwood forest up the flanks of the mountain, and then you pop around the corner of one of these satellite peaks. There's 3 of them that surround the main peak of Blouberg. They're called the Donjons. And you go across this beautiful little plateau, and then you go up this beautiful little kloof. And a lot of the climbers will aim to spend their first night there at the cave, which is on the flanks of the mountain. It's a really convenient place to launch your climbing adventures. So usually, depending on your work situation, you'll either get there in the early evening if you've taken leave, or you might get there at 1 in the morning if you haven't taken leave and you've left after work. And you'll spend the night in the cave, and then the next morning you'll get up as early as you're able. And then you head round to the base of the climbs, and there's this pretty miraculous ramp that cuts across all the big cliffs. So this is the northern aspect of the wall, and all of these are really big cliffs, but there's this perfect ramp, natural ramp that goes down that allows you to walk to the base of the north wall without any abseiling. And then most people will spend the whole day climbing. Sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3 days, depending how it goes. And then usually when you top out, if you're lucky, it's still daylight. And you've got a little bit of gas in the tank for the descent back to the cave. It goes through some pretty tricky route finding through what is called a maze. Legend has it that some people have gotten lost in there for 2 days before finding their way out. But it's all part of the adventure. It's a really kind of remote feeling place, a very wild place, and clearly a place that I love. So I'm definitely not the first person who's spent a lot of time at Blouberg and has had their heart captured by it. I think there's many stories stretching back over centuries at Blouberg. Some of it is literally painted on the walls. So this rock art is from the late 1800s. There was a famous siege at Blouberg around that time, and there's a lot of history that's well worth reading up on. My forte, obviously, is the climbing history, and that's something I get a big kick out of. I really enjoy whenever I'm climbing to know who opened the route, when it was opened, and sort of join the dots to see which other routes they did. And it's like a way of climbers sharing their stories with each other. By my count, there's 48 routes that go up the North Wall. And the first of these, I think, was done sometime in the 1950s. And each subsequent generation has kind of made their mark on the wall, and you can kind of, you start to get a sense of different eras of climbers that have gone before you. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time looking at some of these different eras and the climbers that have made their mark there. So way back in 1960, the first route to really tackle the North Wall proper was a route called Malabach. It's actually named after the chief who was besieged in that late 19th century. Like many routes at the time, it follows the big obvious features. You get into this, I'd like to say chimney system, but it's really an offward system. It's quite gnarly. And you follow it for 200 meters. I think in this photo, Andrew does have a piece of gear. I think it's about there. And it's the smallest cam that we had on our rack. So the first ascensionists definitely didn't have that cam on their rack. So this is pretty typical of most of the climbing. And then you get to the crux, way up at the top, and you clip these mega bomber bolts from 1960. But you're pretty psyched to have them because that's all there is. Goes at about 21, so it's not a pushover. Yeah, I think probably a route that was quite far ahead of its time. This, Paul, I think this is a picture of you, or did you take the picture? You took the picture. So this picture was taken by Paul Fatty, who's here today. It's of his mega classic at Blouberg, a route called Last Moon. And Paul, you'll forgive me if I garble some of the details, but the way I read the route guide, you probably got going up there in the mid-1960s. I think when you started opening new routes at Blouberg, the only route at that stage was Malabach. And you put up about 6 or 7 routes on the North Wall over about 2 decades. I think your early routes seem to stick in the main features, moonlight, and that kind of climb follows the big gullies and the big bushy gullies. And then with routes like Last Moon, you branched out onto the faces and started exploring kind of new territory that hadn't been done before. So Last Moon is a classic for a reason. The top half of the route climbs these crazy jugs. I've got some pictures of it later on. Closest thing you'll find to gym climbing at Blouberg. So Paul, you have a whole era all on your own. Let me just pause this. So there are some routes that are outliers and don't really fit into any era. This video clip is of me climbing a pitch on one of these routes. It was opened in 1979, and I think it was a crazy futuristic ascent when they did it. It's on a route called You Only Live Twice, and Eckhard Drischke and give me a minute, Dave Cheeseman opened it. It tackles this biggest, steepest, scariest part of Blouberg. When they opened it, it involved a lot of aid where they pulled on gear. It goes free these days at about 24, and it's a serious route. It's a very, very tough undertaking. So I've included this clip just to give you a bit of an idea of the nature of the climbing. Imagine doing all of this with hexes and nuts, no sticky rubber, probably no helmets. The ropes dangling down give you a sense of how steep it is. So it's a pretty overhanging pitch. Just to be clear, that's a cam I'm placing. They definitely wouldn't have had cams. Okay, watch me. Doubt they would have had crack gloves either. Yeah, that First Ascent shirt, I think, is from the 70s, so that they could have had. That's a classic. And of course here, when I'm repeating the route, I know exactly where it goes. I've got a route guide. I know how hard it is. Many people have gone before me, but they wouldn't have known all of that, any of that. They wouldn't have known if they were going to get to the top or not. Piece of gear here would be nice. That cam is a long way down. Phew.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was 1979. It really kind of kicked off the next decade, starting in about 1981, and that's when the new routes at Blouberg really exploded. So in that decade, 81 to 91, I think about 2/3 of the 48 routes were opened. So the next couple of slides, they're all from that era. This picture's of the first pitch of a real classic on at Blouberg called 8 Miles High. This pitch goes at about 21. This is on the same route. That's George Mallory that's climbing. It's a really fierce grade 22 pitch, this one, just off the grassy ledge. I love these old pictures. Look at Kevin Smith in the background there. Look at his leggings. That's Stuart Middlemiss in the foreground. They clearly got different ideas about sunburn than I do. And there's Middlemiss and Mallory. They're following. It's a traverse pitch on a route called Something of Value, which is a pitch I've done once, and I'm glad not to do again. It goes at about grade 21, but it's absolutely terrifying. So after the 90s, the kind of modern era got ushered in at Blouberg, and there was one particularly active climber who many of you will probably know from Cape Town, one Charles Snort Edelstein, who is incredibly opinionated but also incredibly energetic. And in the early, I can hear some laughing. In the early 2000s, he fired up his power drill, and he brought some modern tactics to Blouberg, and he created some of the best routes there. This picture is on a route called Dog Day in Heaven. It goes at about 24. This picture is on the crux, and it's just lovely. Like whenever you feel like you need a piece of gear and there's no gear to be had, there's a bolt. You can fall off and it's okay. The bolts will catch you or the gear will catch you, and it's just a stellar route. It's quite a nice picture to show some of the more modern tactics as well. These days it makes a lot of sense to put all your stuff in a little haul bag and figure out a way of hauling your food and water along with you instead of carrying it on your back. It just means the climbing's so much more enjoyable. And then there's still a lot to be done. This particular route is an old route from the 80s, but it's not a closed chapter. It's a route called Road to Nowhere. When the first ascensionists climbed it, they got to this super blank wall not far from the top, and they used some aid tactics, and they put 2 bolts in, and they basically pulled their way through on gear. We tried to go up there to see if it was possible to free climb. We had a secret weapon with us, and that's one Clinton Martinengo, who's super strong. But even he wasn't able to unlock the moves on this one. So we've put the bolts in, or we've replaced the bolts with new ones. So if anyone's strong enough, the challenge is there. It still awaits. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about some of the non-climbing aspects of Blouberg. It's a really beautiful wild mountain, and if you're not a climber, it's well worth a visit. There's a lot to see up there, and a lot of uniqueness. I mentioned in the intro the big yellowwood forest that's spilled down the flanks of the mountain, and there's some real Lord of the Rings trees in there. This big acacia kind of marks the start of the steep part of the walk-in. So when you're walking in and you get here, you know, okay, here we go. And on the walk out, you know you're not far from your car. But it's a nice tree to stand under while you contemplate your fate. This one, I was trying to see if there was an alternative walk-off the one day. There wasn't. There was a lot of thorns. But I did come across this big tree, swallowing this boulder, so sometimes it helps to get lost. And one day, years ago, walking up there, we stumbled into some people walking through the forest with like weird long sticks and all sorts of fancy gadgetry. And we asked them what they were up to, and they said, no, we're here to measure the height of the trees. Turns out Blouberg has some really tall yellowwoods, and they managed it. They figured out which was the tallest tree in the forest, and they climbed all the way to the top and measured it. It weighed in, I think, at 41 or 42 meters, which they tell me is the second tallest indigenous tree in South Africa. So it really is a spectacular forest to spend some time in. The bird life at Blouberg is incredible. When you're climbing, the birds are with you the whole time. In the morning and evening, these swifts come out. I'm going to keep quiet for a bit that you can hear them. So they're just dive bombing you the whole time and hunting for gogos in the air. And then, of course, my absolute favorite, even our 4-year-old son knows that I love vultures more than any other bird. The vultures are always cruising past. Sometimes you'll be climbing and you'll hear a noise that sounds a little bit like a small aeroplane, and you'll look over your shoulder and it'll just be the wind rushing over the vulture's wings 10 meters from the cliff. They often seem quite curious, and it feels like they kind of buzz you to check out what you're doing. I've been told there's almost 1,000 breeding pairs of vultures up there. And in the time that I've been going there, I've definitely seen their numbers increase, so that's quite encouraging. It does have its downsides, and I think this route in particular is a testament to nature conservation. I think this was opened in the early 90s. It's a route called Psycho Reptile, and in the old My Cartwright guidebook, it got 5 stars, and it was always on my list to do it. But it's quite a staunch route, and the things just didn't work out. And eventually, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to try it, and we went up there. And the upper half of the route looked like this, where you're just pulling on vulture poo the whole way. It was terrifying. It's like climbing with ice skates. You never know if what you're standing on is just going to crumble away. You don't know if you're going for an edge or just a horizontal patch of vulture poo. So we gave a good effort. We climbed the whole day, and eventually it got dark. And we decided it was sketchy enough climbing this stuff in the daylight, so we opted to rather abseil. 3 pictures from the top, and we abseiled into the night and made it back to the cave safely early the next morning. So don't do Psycho Reptile. It's not a classic. Not anymore. The cave is another one of those miracles of nature. I can swear to the fact that it stays dry even in the worst torrents. Those waterfalls you see in the background don't normally form up like that, but that trip we managed to stay dry, and we even did a route on the wall, so the place dries out pretty quick. And this is probably 5 minutes walk from the cave. It's a really comfortable place to live. You've got water right there. You can go for a swim, and the views are beautiful. It really feels like a little idyllic valley to live in. It's sheltered from the wind. And this plateau that you get to on your way up to the cave is a little bit far from the climbing to use this as your base. But if you're not climbing, this is the place to be. To come and pitch a tent on this plateau, there's plenty of pools to swim in, beautiful views, so a very special place to hang out, very isolated, way up in the sky. No, so I'll go back to this one. Yeah, I can't remember when it was, but it must have been about 10 years ago. 3 crazies went and landed some light aircraft, probably 10 minutes walk from where this photo was taken, on the top plateau. They hiked up a couple of weeks before with weed eaters and cut the grass to make a landing strip. There's a movie about it, No Need for Parking, I think it's called. Well worth watching. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Some friends of mine were up there. Bernard, were you there? You were there. Yeah, you were there with Graham. Yeah, you guys were up there and you didn't know what was going on, and this plane was buzzing around and the next thing it landed. And then actually Graham hurt himself, hey? And they lifted him down. Yeah, I think Graham took a fall on the wall and hobbled back up the ramp, and there happened to be airplanes on hand and they gave him a ride to the bottom. So if you're really observant, you'll notice that this is not Blouberg. One guess. Anyone want to guess what the route up the middle is called? A nose, voila. So, I mean, apart from, it's always nice to have a photo of El Cap in any slideshow. And pictures of us without our shirts. Thank you. Still got it. So I put this in, maybe before I carry on, who here's been to Blouberg? Okay, so it's a bit of a mixed crowd. Some people have been, some people haven't. I think if you haven't been there, it can be super intimidating to think about how to go there for the first time. How to know you're ready to do it. What are the steps to follow to build up to it? And to climb a route like the nose on El Cap, you don't just walk up to it and start climbing. You have to pay your dues. You have to go through a sort of an apprenticeship to get there. For such a famous route as this one, there's actually a book you can buy called The Road to the Nose, and it sets out exactly the routes that you should climb to get yourself ready to take it on. And so I thought it might be quite nice to do a bit of a road to Blouberg, just for those who have aspirations, and hopefully the slideshow can inspire you to give it a go. And just to kind of gauge where you're at and see if you're ready. So obviously the starting point is you're going to need to learn how to trad climb. And we're here in the MCSA, and it's a really great place to learn how to trad climb. I think we're really lucky in South Africa. If you're in pretty much anywhere else in the world, you have to fork out big bucks for guides, or you just have to teach yourself with friends that you collect randomly, and that can be pretty dangerous. But the mountain club has a lot of regular meets. A lot of them involve trad climbing. This is just from the last month or two. the trad meets that caught my eye. So a great place to start is to go on tons of these meets, follow a bunch of routes, see how people place gear, use lots of different gear, and slowly increase your trad skills. Once you feel like you're leading competently and you know what you're doing as a trad climber, then unlike the road to the nose, which has many routes that are recommended, on my list there's only 4 that you need to be able to do. And if you can do all of these 4 routes with certain conditions, then you're ready to take on a route on the north wall of Blouberg. So again, we're very lucky here in Joburg. We've got the Michalisberg around the corner. All 4 of these are in the Tonkwani Cedarburg area, which the mountain club owns. They're all easily accessible in a day from Joburg, and all of them are graded 19. But they've all got a little something that will get you ready. So Last Rites in Upper Tonkwani has a pretty scary chimney with not much gear. Sands of Time in Lower Tonkwani tackles a blank-looking slab with a little bit of a run-out. Sabre is in Boulder Kloof, and that's some steep hand jamming. And then Boggle is, well, it's what its name says. It's just a bogglingly exposed route in Cedarburg Kloof. So the first step would be to figure out how to climb each of these on their own. But then the real test is to figure out a way to string them all together in a day. And it's a really fun game to play. I've done lots of these kind of link-ups at different grades and combining different routes in the cliffs. It's a fun playground for that. You kind of go up and over from one route to the next. So that middle image is just a track of how a day might look. Start at the parking. Let me get my pointer here. Start at the parking, walk into Upper Tonkwani, climb Last Rites, go across to Boulder Kloof, walk down into Boulder, climb out on Sabre, and then abseil back down. Then go down Lower Tonkwani, climb Sands of Time, ab off that, and then go up Boggle and do the long trudge back to the car. And it's such a great training exercise because you're going to hike about probably 10 kilometers on a day like this. You're going to have to figure out your logistics, how you get your gear up and over all of these routes, your food, where you're going to get water, how to stack the routes up that you're climbing them in the shade or the best conditions. So that there's a lot that goes into it. And it's also a very nice game to build your way up to. If 19 is too hard, then you can play the same game on 15s and see if you can find 4 classic 15s that you can do and work your way up from there. But if you can do all 4 of these in a day, then you're ready to go to Blouberg. So it's a great test without making the commitment of driving all of that way. The next question is then, if you're ready, what route to do? And this is where it gets quite confusing. You open the route guide, and every second route is moon this and moon that. There's half moon and no moon and last moon and blue moon, and they all kind of blend together. But my recommendation is to go up a route called Moon Shadow. It's even more confusing because it's not actually a route. It's just a combination of routes where people have decided to combine the best pictures of pre-existing routes and call it Moon Shadow. But it is a lovely climb. It takes in all the best bits of the kind of more moderate routes in a certain area of the wall. And it goes at about 18 or 19. This picture is on, I think, pitch 2 or 3. And that's the part of the route that often shuts down a lot of people. The route finding is tricky. You look up and you just see tufts of grass sticking out everywhere. There's not these kind of continuous crack lines or big features that you can follow. And you can often be a bit uncertain of where to go. So that's why it's nice to have that kind of grade 19 ability, even though you're on grade 17 terrain, to just be able to have a bit of extra gas to traverse left and right and take your time to figure out the best way. I haven't aged a day. So So once you get through the first 3 pitches, you get to the grassy ledge, which is this great big ledge that you can walk left and right on, and it's what makes these kind of link-up routes possible. And the key beta with the grassy ledge is to know, or to read the route guide and figure out where the abseil route goes. So from the grassy ledge, you can abseil back to the ground on bolts with two rope lengths. But the bolts are quite tricky to find, so it's nice to just read the route guide beforehand and figure out where they are. And the kind of rule of thumb is if you get to the grassy ledge after about 10 a.m., then you may be moving a bit slow to top out the wall in daylight. But if you do decide to go on and you're still moving a bit slow, it's not a big deal. Moonshadow has tons of nice ledges on it. So if it does get dark, you can always just stop where you are and sleep. This is the famous Bivy Cave. Paul, I think you guys would have slept here on your first time getting up there. So it's a nice place to sleep. Probably not so nice without sleeping bags, but one of the great things about the Highveld is you can spend a night out and you're not going to die. And then you get to the money pitch. This is pitch 7, I think. And it really is the closest thing to gym climbing that you'll get at Blouberg. You just, from the Bivy Cave, you pull onto these crazy chicken heads and you follow it for 50 meters. At the top of this pitch, you pull through a pretty big roof, but it's on these massive jugs that you can just cut loose on and look 200 meters down to the ground. And then when you top out, if you're there in late summer, you might get lucky. There are pools on top that form up, really lovely pools, about 5 minutes walk from the top. So always good to know if you've run out of water. And if you get to this position and you've got this much daylight left, then you're sorted. This is maybe half an hour walk from the top of the routes, and the cave is maybe 45 minutes away if you don't get lost, and that's a big if. Most people, particularly on their first trip, don't get here in daylight, and you can still find your way down through the maze to get back to the cave at night if you've got a good headlamp, but often it's misty, and then it's really hard. So many people have spent the night in the maze. If you do, you won't be the first, and you're not going to be the last. So that's the road to Blouberg. I'm going to spend the rest of my time this evening talking about a new route that myself and a bunch of mates put up in 2019 with the name of Jukkels, Stikkels, Frukkels. And I'm going to have a few pics of a route that we're busy working on at the moment. We're going back in a month's time to see if we can finally climb the route from the bottom to the top. So there's some sneak previews of that climb in here as well. But I included this picture just to show what a cutting-edge first ascensionist looks like in his natural element. And I think there's often a misperception about kind of how big routes get opened and how difficult things in the mountains get done. With all the social media and everything, you can kind of imagine that there's just this crack squad of elite athletes that just walk around and just crush things left and right, which is true to a certain extent, but I think the reality is often a lot less glamorous. These things are often done with progressively better style, but starting off with pretty bad style, both in terms of what you wear and how you actually go about the climbing. Sorry, let me pause that for a minute. So maybe I'm just going to use this new route that we're busy with as an example. This little video clip is on pitch 3. And the first trip we went to go and start this new route, we just got up pitch 1. We didn't even get close to this pitch. Spent the whole day on pitch 1. The next trip, we got to this pitch, to the start of the hard climbing, and called it a day because we were knackered and went down. And then on the third trip, we actually managed to get up this pitch, which I was well psyched about. And we got another pitch or so higher before calling it a day and going home. So this video is on the 4th pitch. And I was sure that I had it in the bag because I'd done it last time. And this is what happened. So we had a bit of a conundrum because it was a 2-day trip and this was in the morning of day 1, and the plan was to climb another 2 pitches and sleep on a ledge and then keep going. And but I couldn't do the move, and I tried and kept falling off. But we had to make a plan. So a plan was made, and we managed to procure a super long stick. And I taped a nut to the end of the stick, and I reached up with my nut stick and popped the nut into a crack that I could see from below, and then tested it a couple of times with a rope, and then just yarded up on the rope and got through the cracks like that. And then we were able to carry on. Turns out my nut placement was bomber. You could have parked a truck on that thing. Probably my proudest gear placement ever. So this pitch still hasn't been sent. Hopefully September. So these days we typically use a combination of tactics. Blouberg being as big as it is, it doesn't make sense to abseil the full height of the wall to access the lower pitches. So normally we try go ground up for the lower climbing, and then hike around to the top and ab in to figure out where the top half of the route goes. So this is abseiling in from the top to check out the head wall on the new route. And the next video gives you an idea of the kind of junk show that you're dealing with when you're abbing in on these routes to try and figure out a new line.
Would you like to say anything before you go off into the abyss?
Fuck yeah! Woo-hoo! Maybe I should do that again without swearing.
All of these aloes and
Amazing.
So 2 ropes on my back, a drill, all sorts of bolting shenanigans, and a rack on my harness. Lots of tat, bushes. It's super glamorous.
maybe we should just send that chick some of these video clips and photographs, and she can find the right words.
Hannes.
Are we?
So Hannes is here somewhere tonight. There we go. You learn a lot with these kind of missions. The knowledge to do all of this stuff doesn't arrive all at once, and you build up for it, and often you learn while doing things like this. Hannes, I think this was one of your first experiences like this. You can see by his smile he's got the right attitude. It's you basically just need to embrace the learning. But it's super fun if you can kind of push the exposure to the back of your mind. Where are you going? Where are you going, dude?
I'm tired of this shit. Look at this. Oh my god.
So he looks super slick right now, and I filmed for as long as I could until he told me I had to stop because he was tiring. We had a long way to go. So that first ascent shirt is a repeat offender in the slideshow. But I could probably do a whole slideshow of pictures where I look something like this. Here's another one. But I think every single classic route anyone here has ever climbed probably had serious amounts of cleaning that went in to make it happen. And this is what it looks like to do the cleaning.
Hey?
This video shows where it comes from.
Super. A bit dirty there.
So Hector, I'm not going down to deposit the sleeping bag. You do it.
Good times.
Yeah, I've got it with me. Okay.
That on my harness is a really long stick. So it's kind of like the first ascent shirts. It's a feature. And you'll see in the next video why I have a really long stick hanging off of my harness. It's all part of the cleaning operation. Sometimes you encounter loose rock that needs to go. This one was fun.
Ready, Freddy. Ready, Foley. Jeez. So, well, there we go. Hercules.
So,
There's our
being the engineering nerd that I am, on the drive home, I calculated the energy in that explosion, and it turns out it's the same as a hand grenade. So that pitch is now called a hand grenade arete. There's a lot of hard work with these routes. On the early trips, we kind of we're trying to follow Yosemite ethics where the bolts are all hand drilled. This is Tim drilling bolt number 2, I think. And I think after bolt number 3, we decided that next time we'd bring a power drill, because one hole takes about 30 minutes. It really sucks. So these days we're much wiser, and we bring the power drill.
Are you chilling?
I'm chilling.
Hannes is working hard. Thanks, Hannes. Thank you.
Check this move.
Yes, yes, you look like Thor up there, dude. Nice, Hannes. Moi.
So eventually, after all the hard work is done, you've placed the bolts, you've cleaned the grips, you've trundled the loose rocks, then you actually get to climb the thing. The hard work's not done though, because these routes are pretty hard for the level that we climb at, so we typically do them over 2 days. And that means you've got to lug a lot of stuff up to the base of the wall, a lot of water, sleeping bags, stoves. I think in this picture, or in this video, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ropes. Don't ask me why. So it's the hard work's not over, but looking up, this was on the 2019 route, Jukkels, Stukkels, Frukkels, and that view up is where the route got its name. So this is the fun part. This is on the first pitch of that route. It goes at about 24, and it's just unreal climbing. 5 stars. It would be 5 stars in Boerven.
Not over till the fat lady sings, huh?
Yo. She's been singing for a while. For me.
Very pretty toes on the top there. Oh, and that first ascent shirt again.
Oh, conglomerative.
So hauling is a big part of these missions, and that's another great opportunity for learning, because you quickly learn when your system sucks, which it always does in the beginning, and then you have to refine it and figure out something that actually works. Another really pro tip is to get your mate to do all the hauling. And Gustav always does it with a smile. Extra points.
Into the highs before going back into the lows.
Good times.
Gus
I'm
is
a climber and I'm a singer.
definitely not missing leg day today. Mooi Gustav, you're doing great.
I feel great.
Thanks, Gus. So this section of the wall is in a different area from the place where Moonshadow goes up, where there's the grassy ledge. The grassy ledge there is at about the top of pitch 3. This area about halfway up the wall, so sort of top of pitch 5 or 6 depending on which route you're doing, there's a bivvy ledge. So it's a smaller ledge than the grassy ledge, but still a really fantastic place to hang out, and that's part of why I love these routes so much. And this gives you a bit of an idea of what it's like camping up there.
Oh, that breakfast.
First ascent shirt. It's a nice place to wake up. And this next video is some more bivvying vibes. Similar area on the wall, 1 or 2 pitches lower down, there's another great ledge to sleep on. Oh, hold on, sorry, I've skipped a slide. This is still on the same ledge. Let me just pause this for a second. This is on the same ledge as the previous video. The previous one we had a tent and it didn't rain. In this video we didn't have a tent and it did rain. Go figure. There were 4 of us there that day. Myself and Tim, being the experienced mountaineers that we are, brought Gore-Tex bivvy bags. Marianne, who is an even more experienced mountaineer than the 2 of us, didn't bring a bivvy bag. And Mel, who is not an experienced mountaineer but has climbed in the Olympics, also didn't bring a bivvy bag. So Tim and I had a fantastic night's sleep when this big thunderstorm pulled through. Marianne and Mel didn't sleep at all. And this is the aftermath the next morning.
Very wet. Bivvy. Tim can't say how's it. He's still cocooned.
Mel had an English exam 2 days after this video was taken that we had to get him back for.
Dry Hector.
Matric English exam, yeah.
Morning.
I slept great.
Yeah.
It's hanging in the tree there.
Make us tea first. Horrible clouds.
Top morning. So now, if I've got it right, the next video is on a pitch or 2 lower down on a different bivvy ledge. That gives a bit of a sense of scale. And a bit of Game of Thrones music. Seems appropriate. there's a dragon there somewhere.
Okay, Tim.
So this video is from the 2019 route, Yuckles, Stickles, Fruckles. It's the crux pitch. It goes at about 25. And I tried it the evening before from the bivvy ledge. It's one pitch above the bivvy ledge. But I'd fallen off. So we'd left a fixed rope hanging overnight when the big storm came through. And after we'd had some tea and 2 of the 4 of us had dried off, then we were ready to climb, and I gave it another shot. So this was basically my last chance to send that pitch on that trip.
Allez. Yeah. Yeah, baby.
Come on!
I was pretty psyched.
Yes!
Jesus.
God!
Well, freaking done.
Oh! Oh!
Awesome, man.
Woo!
Lekker.
Come on!
This is quite nerve-wracking watching.
God!
All done.
Ah!
It's over.
Ah!
Almost.
God, that was close.
Super bomber stance there.
Ah.
So this video shows the same area of the wall. This is on the route that we're busy with now. And it gives quite a nice idea of the kind of terrain up there. So there I'm climbing. And this was the high point on that trip. Just a couple of moves above where I am now. We were trying to figure out a way to go through these roofs up here, but it just wasn't happening ground up. So then on a later trip, we abbed in from the top. So now there's 2 bolts out left here, and that's where the line's going to go. That loose flake is gone now. That's a small one. So this is a picture looking down one of the upper pitches. We've put a couple of bolts into this pitch, but it gets pretty steep and hard up there. I think Hannes managed all the moves on this one, but we'll see if we can actually climb it in one go in September. Fingers crossed. So just a last video also of that upper section of the wall. Where I've paused it here, there's hand grenade arete. So that big loose block was somewhere about there. Now there's a nice little foot ledge that you can stand on. And there's a couple of bolts on that pitch, but it's going to be another hard one. So just to close off, this is actually why we do all of these things. I think spending time in mountains is as much about the people that you go with and the kind of shared experiences as it is about the climbing itself. And you kind of, what's quite nice about doing something like the slideshow is you get to look back over all the years that you've spent up there. I enjoy seeing how much that first ascent shirt appears in these photos. Some of these pics, it looks like we've hit some narcotics or something with the rabbit eyes, but those are long days. Yeah, there's a lot of memories on a mountain like Blouberg. So I hope this evening's been a bit of an inspiration to go up there and make some of your own. It's well worth it. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has, either now or over a drink afterwards. But thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Hector. It was truly inspiring, and I've been to Blouberg once, and it was the experience of my life. So I'm motivated to go again, and there's some link ups coming up for me. So thank you very much for it.
Well, you're on the WhatsApp group, Benny. You must come. Thank you very much. Thanks, Benny. Thanks. Any questions? Blouberg is indeed for everyone. It is. Bells? To my tent, the one in the picture. Well, it's a great question. We foolishly took the tent down with us after that trip. We didn't leave it on the ledge. Oh, no, so the first picture where the tent was on an earlier trip. And then the video where we woke up after the storm was like a year later on a different trip. Yeah, and we didn't leave the tent there. We should have left it there. It has been called a woman repeller. But you'll see the later photos, I'm not wearing those green shirts. Married life agrees with me.
Sorry, I just wanted to know about access. You know, when you're throwing these boulders off of this cliff, who's down at the bottom there? Is there access that you have to sort out with everyone?
So, yeah, part of doing a, no, I'm trying to think of a clever response, but none is forthcoming. But basically, even if all of you decided to go to Blouberg tomorrow, it would still be pretty uncrowded. There's almost never anyone else on the mountain. Usually when there is, they're with you. The local community who owns the land and who very kindly allows us access, they live around the foothills of the mountain down at the bottom, many kilometers from where the climbing takes place. So there's no one down there. And yeah, you can throw rocks off there. I think the only thing to pay attention to is if it's the middle of winter. Sometimes you can cause a fire with sparks. So in the middle of winter, we tend not to trundle too much. But if it's summer and the bush is green, then it's generally not an issue. Yeah, no, it's a good point. Maybe I must add a set. I'm a slow learner.
Can we use the microphone? Otherwise the stream can't hear it.
I've been told Blouberg's always easy to get lost in. I'm just talking about hiking. Is the main route up onto the plateau
marked, or is there a clear path, or?
So it is on a path most of the way, but if you haven't been there before and you don't have a GPS track, you will get lost. It's kind of like cattle trails and local farmer trails through the forest. So there's many different paths that go in all funny directions, and some of the turnoffs are not very obvious. You kind of on this main path, and then you suddenly have to duck off onto a small path into the bushes at a couple of places. These days, though, there are GPS tracks that you can get. So if you're on the Mountain Club WhatsApp group and you want to go and you're not going with someone who knows the way, just pop a message and you'll get the tracks. They are very reliable. People have gone up there lots who haven't been before and just follow GPS.
Does the trundling ever change the route below you? Like, does it ever hit somewhere where it might create a hold or deviate the route slightly?
I suppose it might. I've never noticed if it has. But yeah, I guess it might. I have trundled boulders like that and chopped my own ropes. So that's also something to watch out for. Probably like the goggles, it's worthwhile to learn from your mistakes and pull up your ropes when you trundle big rocks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. There's some more food. All the food must go before we leave. There's some drinks. Just watch out for designated drivers. There is cops in this area, although all the food before you go. And stay as long as you want. There's no closing time.